Hi, we are here for another episode of Annegirls, and these have just all been great. I can't say that, you know, this is particularly bad, especially after having to go over the chapter where Rowan and Michael fucked. Like that was definitely the worst chapter so far. We are on chapter 21 though to start out with. We're going to go through chapter 25 on this episode. Chapter 21 though is also uncomfortable because Rowan is just like on a plane getting ghost fucked, and I just have to look at it from the point of view of somebody who's like maybe sitting in the next row, and there's just this weird lady moaning and like writhing in her seat. No thank you. No thank you, please.
Yeah. I don't know what to say about that chapter. It was kind of pointless. I mean, I guess it's another encounter with Lasher at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I remember it being quite graphic too, how it was described. Um, I yeah, it's like I mean, I guess maybe it's like that romance part that a lot of people like. A lot of people like the weird, like, I don't know, whatever. I don't know if they like what Anne Rice writes because she uses weird shit like her sex and stuff. So it's just
Yeah.
disturbing. I don't
Yeah.
know if any other author uses that.
I don't know if it's just like I didn't read a lot of romance from this time period at all. Like this is maybe the only like I don't know. Wait, actually. I think that this book definitely says his sex in it at least once. 1994, Metal Angel. This is
Metal
a
Angel.
romance. A paranormal romance again. I think this is like 89, 90. So yeah, like that time period. It's just like it's boomer writing. I don't know. That's what they
Yeah.
thought was hot, I guess. It's not hot to me. I thought this was an uncomfortable chapter. But it was small. I
Yeah, I'll
do
give her
think it's
that.
kind of weird how like Rowan's chapters are just like these tiny little beats that are put in among the rest of it, which I guess what it's showing is that she's coming to New Orleans and she's getting more immersed in Lasher and more immersed in this life that was like forbidden to her. And it like irrevocably makes it so she can't go back to her old life. But
Yeah. I mean, that just seems to be kind of her style based off of this book and what I've read of Lasher so far. It's she has like these long like stories. Like in Lasher, it's Julian, and then in between Julian telling the story, there's like all these short little chapters. They're like, oh, this is going on too. Which I mean, I guess at least it gives you a break from those like 40-page chapters.
yeah, I really wish she would just
Major
break those
files
up. I just don't.
yeah,
There's
they're
so
very
many
long.
subheadings in them. Just break them up. I mean, if you have to, like, there's no way. You are not telling me that this bitch who has to be drunk off of his ass whenever he's not within like so much of a perimeter of a magical pussy, he has to be drunk all the time. So like you're telling me that this man is like just sitting there reading this stuff that makes me tired, okay? This shit that makes me fucking tired, that when I read it in a sitting, he's just sitting there doing that all day. I don't buy it. Like
Yeah, bullshit. You'd be like, you got the note version. We don't. I don't need
right.
this shit
And I
because it
also
is.
feel like, I mean, I guess if
I
he
don't
reads
disagree with them.
Dickens regularly, he's numbed his ability to like enjoy anything. So, but
And
I
he's
I
smart.
feel like if he was as much of a drunk as she paints him to be, instead of a magical pussy there, he's got air in there, and Aaron's like, "No, you're going to be a good guy because I'm a good guy and we're good guys together." And so this is a very compelling argument that I'm giving you. And if that really did work, I still feel like he's gonna have withdrawals, he's gonna have DTs, he's gonna have like all these different issues that come with like alcohol addiction.
Yeah,
So he's not gonna sit there and read this dry shit. like for hours. Like it just
No, some of it like very pointless. I mean, I'm sorry. It's just like she throws out like so many of the family members, and it's like a lot of them really don't have much importance to anything. So
yeah, and so many of them, they're like related in so many different ways to each other.
yes, it is hard to the family tree is like impossible to figure out.
Yeah,
I have like the charts on mine, but
I try to figure what was it? I did it somewhere in it. I'm just gonna Cortland fucked his aunt, Mary Beth, right? So, because that's how he would become Stella's, because it said that Cortland was likely Stella's dad too. But I mean, did Cortland and Julian have the same blood type? Because it could be Julian because they're not using. And then I thought, even if they were using DNA, would they be able to tell because it's like father and son and they're from such an inbred line that it
yeah,
would you be able to tell anyway? Because like I was reading this section that said that Cortland may have been Stella's father, Anta's father, and Rowan's father. So that means that he's Rowan's dad, grandpa, and great grandpa. And also like a fourth cousin once removed because of Julian and like being related to Julian because Julian's Mary Beth's brother and he's Julian's son. So Cortland fucked his aunt, Mary Beth, his first cousin slash daughter, Stella, his first cousin once removed slash daughter slash granddaughter, Antha, and his first cousin twice removed slash great granddaughter slash granddaughter slash. She's not daughter though, because Antha actually got out and fucked a different guy, which good on Antha. But Deirdre is still his relative like 5 different ways. It's just
yeah. I it's like at that point it's like okay, like there is some exaggeration probably where it's like if someone has a kid with their cousin or something, it's not necessarily gonna be like fucked up. But like when you're doing it to that extent, like someone's gonna have like extra fingers or something, right? Or like
there's gonna be a Habsburg jaw in there somewhere. There just has to be.
yeah.
Like
But no, they're all like, especially like
beautiful.
Rowan's like, yeah, Rowan's like the worst of all of them. This she came out like of a bunch of that shit, and she's like, you know, whatever the fuck Mary Sue or the fuck they used to call that.
Yeah. Well, and she supposedly looks like Peter. Which of course Nathan wasn't here last time, but Steph and I went all in on Peter. We fucking hate Peter. So
I don't even like. I don't like. How would they know? I mean, I guess this is an author's point of view, but I just don't like. How would they even know what the fuck Peter looks like at that point? He's like hella dead.
I'm guessing that there's probably a painting of Peter somewhere in the Talamasca.
Okay.
I think that that's what
true.
it's from. Because he's their guy. Which at one point they I think it's Aaron or somebody says, maybe it's not Aaron, but somebody says that they're going to like get to the bottom of things to like avenge Stuart Townsend and Peter. And I'm like, avenge Stuart, okay? He was just in love with Stella and like trying to hit. I can't blame him for that. Peter fucked his daughter and like knew it was wrong, battled with it in his head and still did it. So Peter can go in the trash. Like Lasher did what he needed to do to Peter. So I'm on Team Lasher in that situation.
Captive.
Huh?
He had no choice, so he was held captive.
Bullshit! You can choose.
Nah, that was stupid. That just seems like some weird like fantasy. I don't know.
Yes,
Hopefully.
it did. It's so. I just like wonder because of the way it's written. It's not just like written like this is a terrible thing. It's kind of like I feel like Peter and Michael especially still get to be the hero in the narrative, even though they're fucking heinous.
And Julian.
And Julian, yes.
I don't know if it changes later in the story, but he's like just seen as this like, eclectic, just like weird. Oh, but he's really cool basically. And it's like, oh yeah, he just has sex with like his daughters and stuff. And it's like,
Yep.
I don't know. She's just completely neutral about it, which,
That's a
what
way
it
to
is.
approach it, I guess. But
Yeah.
in chapter 22, we're pretty much looking at the story of what happens after Stella dies, and it leans into Antha and then a little bit into Deirdre. So Antha is the one who actually gets the fuck out of New Orleans. She runs away and posts up with some artist in New York and just lives. They say that she got a little poem, only a few lines, but she got it in the New Yorker. And as a working poet, I have to say that is quite an accomplishment. It's probably harder now, but even then I would say it's quite an accomplishment. It seems like she has a whole ass life, and then her husband dies in a car accident and she goes insane. But let me just say that at this time period, which would have been, Antha dies in 38, so this all happened prior to that. They were throwing women in insane asylums for saying that they wanted to vote, or like that they didn't like a man, or like that, they had a bad period. They would just throw them in the insane asylum. So I don't really trust the narrative that says that she was, inconsolable or like couldn't be. It's just like nobody wanted to deal with her. That's all.
I don't remember her going that insane, really. It was just like she was really fucked up, obviously, from losing Sean, I guess his name was.
Yep.
And like, rightfully so, because it sounded like her upbringing was quite abusive. Anything with Carlotta is like always fucked up. And then when she finally got away, she was having this good life, and then when he died, it's like that was it. It's back to the First Street house where the fucking how that ends. It does not end well.
No.
But she wasn't like Deirdre or anything, where she was just like totally unresponsive, whatever. And there's obviously a reason for that with Deirdre.
I feel like the way that Deirdre was kept was because of Antha, because I do think that there's this tug of war between like the other lawyers in the family, which are like Julian's descendants, like the New York branch of the family, and Carlotta over Antha. And I hate to say it, but like I kind of remember a little bit, and you read more about who Cortland is in the next couple of chapters, and it seems like Cortland got a little taste of what Daddy had at some point and wanted to find some way to get Lasher under his thumb. And so he was willing. I don't think he was as sweet as he makes himself out to be. He's out there murdering people like left and right. With ricin, that's KGB shit. That's fucking KGB shit, brother. I just feel like, he was trying to get control of them so that he could do, and Carlotta is trying to get control of them because she thinks that she can like use Jesus to get the demon out of them.
Yeah.
So they both think they're right. Neither of them have good intentions. And that's like the two factions that these women are like kind of stuck against for generations. And these annoying characters are so long-lived versus the designees.
And when she comes back, I don't remember how long it is until she gets into the fight, basically with Carlotta. Even I don't know. They say it's suicide, but I don't remember if in this chapter they describe that, where it's basically like Carlotta like swatted her like eye off or whatever the hell. It was pretty fucked up.
Yeah, I thought I remember Carlotta killing her. It wasn't in this chapter, but
Yeah.
I think I remember from a previous read that it wasn't Antha leaping to her death.
Spoiler alert. I know it's in this book they talk about it again.
The other thing is there's a doctor that comes in. It's like Dr. Cornell Mayfair. He comes in to like try to help kind of the New York faction try to find some way to pretty much like argue for Antha, and like that she doesn't need as much as Carlotta has been pushing on them. And they seem to use it to imply that Carlotta tried to kill him, but he dies the same way all of Cortland's victims die, which makes me think that either he said something Cortland didn't like about Antha, but I don't really think that's the case. I think what happened was this Cornell character had a boner for Louisa Ann Mayfair, who was it sounded like Cortland's niece based on the description of who her family members were, and these guys are like notoriously fucking their daughters and nieces. So I have a feeling that it was actually like a crime of passion or some shit that's like in the margins. Maybe it's never revealed. Another thing about like how we're talking about the way that she writes these characters and the way she writes things is, for one thing, there is a lot of classism in this book. They describe Millie and Belle as like these two rich old biddies just like throwing their money around, wearing fancy clothes, even though like Millie was like the soft-brained child of incest from, I think it was Julian and Mary Beth. Can't even remember. It was Julian fucking one of the women.
I don't remember that one.
Maybe it was Stella. I don't know, but it was Julian fucking one of them. It's Julian's soft-brained child, right?
Yeah.
But like Nancy came from one of the cousins, you know, covering up somebody's affair, and she's described as like this frumpy, born and reared from an entirely different class, which isn't the case really, because she was raised by Mary Beth. She was taken into the First Street house by Mary Beth and raised up with all the other kids. And so yeah, I just feel like there's a lot of backhanded shit, and you see it in the Michael chapter, you see it in a lot of Rowan shit. Pair that with Deirdre looking so mature. It's so icky. It's icky. Like every gaze in this, just like very bad towards women, towards children, towards people of different classes. It's just, I don't even like the way she describes Red Lonigan. The way she describes fat people is offensive even. Like I have a feeling, as much as I love her books and as much as like these are entertaining, even though it's like torment, I don't think Anne Rice and I would get along. I don't think we would be friends.
I don't know if that would be a good thing to be friends with her anyway, so probably not.
I mean, I write about fucked up shit, okay? But I leave kids out of it. If I write a character that is fucked up, I try to have an opposition to it at least in the narrative and not have it be like the main voice of my book.
Yeah, I remember hearing there's like controversy with her that means, but when I look at controversy, she's just like calls cultural criticism censorship and like all that kind of shit, and like whining about political correctness, which
that's typical boomer shit though. I don't know.
It's like she helped do the new Interview with the Vampire, right? Because that's like everyone was saying about her shit is it was like woke and everything. It was like, bro, they turned against you.
It ultimately backfired on her to have that opinion.
If she's talking about this shit, I'm reading it, but I can totally understand why someone would not want to read this. You can talk about like edgy stuff like Game of Thrones or something where there is like weird like incest and stuff. I still don't feel like it reaches this. It gets disturbing with Cortland being, you know, 3 fucking generations like dad. If I remember correct, she's dropped at the end of a chapter. Like,
yeah,
it's like maybe.
Yeah, it was in one of the file chapters. It's just like in there, like, oh, we ran these blood tests and they were all like pointing towards Cortland being the dad of like all of these generations. And
realistically, who knows, like with like how fucked up this is, like there's probably no way to actually tell, but if she's writing that, there's obviously she's, you know, insinuating it. So
yeah, she's wanting us to put that in our minds and consider that as a possibility. Because we're talking about like blood type testing, which is like, you know, Ricky finding out that Ray couldn't be his dad because they had incompatible blood types. I always had to bring Trailer Park Boys up, but and again, like at the end of this chapter, they say she allowed the man to touch her indecently, and they're talking about Deirdre. Her innocence is a complete facade. And it's like, okay, I just the attitude that you have to have this opinion. And this, I think this is coming from Beatrice, is the one who is the like informant in these chapters, or maybe it's a different informant. I'm not sure with this one, but it's like, first of all, if you see a grown man touching a child, or like a child allowing a grown man to touch, whatever you want to, however you want to interpret it, that grown man needs to go to jail. Like, you need to
Yeah.
interfere, like, as an adult person, you need to intervene and make sure that man goes to jail. Now, this is a fuck ghost. He can't go to jail. But, like, it's not the child's fault. The child is a child that has a child's brain. That's the point of, like, protecting children. And the way that this is written again and again and again. And the thing about it is like, I feel like later on with Mona, she's gonna sit there and like say, oh, it's because, you know, she's part of the witch family and they're like old souls and they're like, you know, all that shit. But even the thing about it is these informants are outsiders and they don't maybe necessarily even see like Lasher as a fuck ghost. They just see him as a man that's there and they think these kids are horny. And it's like, that's an outsider's point of view without even taking into account the like, I'm a timeless witch thing. So it's just a bad, pervasively bad take throughout. It irritates me.
Unfortunately, yeah, like all of this lore chapters, there's a lot of interesting parts about like the witches, but there's so much of it. It's like, oh my God.
Yep.
It's hard to get through. You feel like you've read nothing because I don't remember any of it. I'm never gonna like figure out these family lines. Like you're describing it here, and I'm still like, I don't fucking know. It's just like you're gonna just be like, they all fuck each other. There you go.
Yeah, they just all fuck each other. It's like, it's more like a family, like, you know, the vines that grow on the fence and you just get all tangled and shit and you can't tell.
Yeah.
It's not a tree.
Yeah,
So.
it's like when she talks about like, you know, great cousin 20 times over Ben Mayfair or whatever. Like, and it's like, do you need to talk about these people? Like, I'm not. She just introduces so many people in these chapters, and it's like, oh my God.
Some of the women we need to know about because I think they're the ones that get their uteruses blown up later by Lasher. So
even though like there's like ones in Texas and stuff she never mentioned in this book, so she brings even more people in.
She had to make more because he had to go on a horny road trip. So I will say 23 is the one where I liked Aaron Lightener. And then I read 23 and I was like, I don't know if I like Aaron Lightener anymore. Because Aaron looks at Deirdre with that same like horny look. And I mean, she's in college now. It's not as bad. But Aaron's an old man at this point. Like,
yeah,
Deirdre was born when he first came on the case. So, ick.
Yeah, I forgot about that. There was like, he was like kind of falling for her, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's okay because it's the witch's seductive powers. No, it's not. I don't care.
It's very weird anyways because of like his purpose in this whole thing. You're supposed to be like investigating these people anyways. Like, why are you getting emotionally? I guess eventually he falls in love with Beatrice. So
after that, Aaron meets with Cortland, and that's when he tries to kill him with ricin.
Yeah, and then the Talamasca's like, get the fuck out of there, right?
Yeah.
Because Cortland and Carlotta are like fighting over Deirdre. Which, I mean, like you said, they both have bad intentions, but I almost like wish the Cortland thing would have been where she went just because he might not have drugged her. And well, she never had a chance at the beginning because of the family. But Deirdre, of all the characters in this story, I had the most sympathy for her because
also Deirdre and Rita Mae, that's the romance that I live for in this book, I think, is Deirdre and Rita Mae and like the love that they had for each other.
Oh, yeah. That was like, yeah, the whole story just seemed pretty wholesome where it's like most of these other people are just so fucked up. It's just like, and then there's Rowan where it's like she didn't necessarily, well, I mean, I guess you say she killed people, but
she killed really, people. Like, she killed way more people than
it's like, you know, she keeps trying to make her out to be this like great person and stuff, but it's like the more she does it, the more annoying she is. So it's like, man, she's just unlikable.
She is
like Michael.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I feel like the way that the chapters are written and like Rowan's tiny ass little chapters, even though her whole life is being uprooted, versus Michael's like sprawling chapters about him getting drunk and like wandering around the city and like having to have Aaron come babysit him. It's so infuriating to me because it's like, I feel like we're pivoting towards like Michael being more of a main character than Rowan in a lot of sense. And I don't like that.
I don't know about that. I haven't read the whole series yet, so I don't know.
You know how you said that, you know, her life was, she becomes a mindless idiot, they say, and she's put on all of these drugs, and they say that whenever she's sober she screams, but that's from Carlotta, so I don't know if I believe that.
Not trustworthy,
But there's a psychic at one point that the Talamasca hires, and they want to make sure that Deirdre's not like this mindless medium that is like making Lasher show up and like causing havoc, because Lasher is potentially dangerous. And she says that Deirdre is in this dream world where Lasher's keeping her in this blissful state. There's beautiful sunsets, there's flowers, there's all this stuff. And, you know, at the same time, like, either way could be true. Like, she could be causing it, or, you know, Lasher could be holding her hostage and telling the medium what the medium would want to hear to make it seem like everything was okay. But I like the idea, and frankly, based on how terrible Carlotta and Cortland are, I like the idea that Lasher is actually out to, like, take care of Deirdre, because that's the only person that does, except for Rita Mae, and Rita Mae is held back by Carlotta, I feel like Cortland would kill her if she got involved. Her husband doesn't want her involved, probably because he knows how dangerous Cortland is.
I don't know, Lasher.
I know Lasher's a piece of shit, but he has it. If you look at Lasher's like self-interest to be nice to Deirdre, he knows that she's not the one that's gonna bring him around. But he also knows that you know, this is who he's with right now. This is who he's tied to. He's got to get to her daughter somehow. So it's in his best interest to keep Deirdre like taken care of. So I feel like he would at least, and I do feel like to an extent Lasher does love the women in this family. Like, I feel like he is very attached to them emotionally, because he acts like a fucking messy piss baby when somebody slights him. Which that's just the way men act, I think. No, sorry, that's bad. I shouldn't say that. Not all men. Hashtag not all men.
At this point, yes. I don't want to.
Oh, I know. Lasher's gonna get so much more unhinged, and I don't even remember how bad he was.
It's kind of like Rowan, you know, he thinks he's gone.
So 24 is Deirdre's funeral, and this is what was irritating me earlier when I was like, oh, wait a minute. But it's because Rowan keeps saying, if only Michael were here. This is Michael's world. Bitch, this is your fucking family. Like, how is she such a boss bitch, but immediately becomes codependent on this absolute trash fire of a man? Like, I just don't understand it. Like, she's been running her own life and bringing all these men back to her boat and being a Dr. Sailor for all this time. And now that, like, she meets this man and she's this codependent mess. Like,
for like a day. No, it's weird. The whole funeral that was another annoying chapter.
All of the
she can't do anything, and all the names, and Aaron's like dragging around. And it's like,
so what is the she can't do anything thing? Like, do you know what that is? Is that Lasher holding her back, or like what? She says she can't talk. I don't understand why.
No, I think that's just like her, maybe not anxiety, but like, I guess overwhelmed. I mean, I guess I understand, because it's like she never got to meet her mom, but like you said, like as far as the family stuff, it's like, that's your family, and you know, you don't know them, and once again, that's probably overwhelming. But like, what the fuck would Michael do to her? Sit there like with the stupid gloves on and drink a beer, and
he crack a cold one on mom's coffin.
Like fucking lame, dude. Like, quote Dickens and shit.
God damn it, no. Michael's so annoying. I hate Michael.
It's like, he doesn't know these people either.
No.
That whole part's annoying, and then like Aaron has to drag her around the whole time. It's like,
Aaron's like just the babysitter of these two, apparently.
At this point, definitely.
And then I guess there's another Pierce, which confused the shit out of me, because I was like, wait, Pierce was fucking Stella. And so I was like, that's like 1920. But then it's like, it's another Pierce, because I went back and reread to write my notes up, and that Pierce died in like 1932. So, and the thing is like, I get that family names repeat in families, but this is too big of a fucking confusing family. Use a different name. Like, call him Peter. But spell it normal. Call him Petey. Call him Petey the pigeon. I don't know. Also, like with Aaron and like the way that he treats Rowan, I feel like him babying her, the way that he had to baby like alcoholic Michael made her look really bad. It made them seem the same. And I'm like, no, she's not. Like, I hate Rowan. Don't get me wrong. Like, I think Rowan is a trash fire, but like not as bad as Michael. Like, Michael's way worse than Rowan. There's probably things that Rowan does worse later on, like after Lasher comes into the picture, but like all I can think of is Michael fucking a child and Michael being pretentious as fuck and annoying me. So,
well, not to give spoilers, but it's like, yeah, the second book so far, it's like Michael's fucking like a kid basically and being like weirdo, and Rowan's being like tied up and like, you know, forced like laying her piss for days and stuff. It was like, I feel more sympathy for Rowan by a lot. This book, they were kind of equally annoying. I don't know, to me, but
yeah, I remember having more sympathy towards Rowan at the end of reading all three of them, but
oh, definitely, yeah. It's like in this book, they're just both so fucking pretentious and annoying, and it's just like so stupid. Like, oh, I'm gonna open up a hospital. Oh, let's go to Texas or wherever, Florida, and let's like listen to whatever that stupid classical artist Michael talks about is.
Oh God.
Let's blast that bad boy. You know, it's just like it's all so cheesy and dumb. And it's like I hate it. It's maybe I'm just not like a romance person.
This is a highly developed story. As bad as it is, it's a highly developed story.
Yeah, no, yes.
Very gray morals. This isn't a what I would call a straight romance. This is definitely paranormal romance. This is definitely a horror book first.
Yeah.
But God, we're gonna get back into the problematic shit because I'm looking at my next note and it is talking about how they describe Deirdre's corpse. Ageless, young still, a giant little girl. Oh, it's like they're setting up reciprocal permission to be okay with the way that girls are sexualized, because here's this adult woman dying in her 40s looking like a little girl. You can't tell with these women. That's just how they are. That's how their family is. They just look like children from the time they're born until they're adults or until they're in their old age, and they're just beautiful and you can't resist them and they know what they're doing. No.
Not much more I can add to that. Right. It's basically every woman character in most of these.
They're irresistible. God. Like,
I mean, maybe Rowan gets a bit more of it. Not really, no. Never mind. No, that's
everybody
everyone.
says Rowan's beautiful. Like, okay, we can go to the next chapter because 24 is kind of short, honestly. I think the only interesting thing left in that chapter is like Rita Mae. She's like trying to talk to Rowan, and Lonergan keeps holding her back. And I have to say, I don't think that's malicious on his part. I think he's trying to protect her, because I don't think you can trust the Mayfairs. I don't know that anyone stepped up to Cortland levels at this generation, but he's probably buried some bodies he's very questionable about. We'll put it that way. So he probably wants to protect her. It sounds like they have like a pretty normal relationship. 25 is Rowan's file. Again, they kind of dog on her a little bit, like, oh, she's not conventionally attractive, but she's still gorgeous and, you know, appealing, and like Dracula, where like he could get all the bitches to come and let him suck on them.
Yeah, start looking at them.
Okay, so in this chapter in 25, they start by describing Ellie and Graham's house, and I have to say, the way it's described, and I know it's like some fancy like classist shit that we're used to in this book so far, but do you remember in Bad Ben when like he's describing his house?
Yeah, he keeps talking up all the time.
And it feels so much like an ad. And that's what it felt like when I was reading that. I was like, oh my God. And then they describe Rowan as like, you know, she's not hot, like she's not conventionally attractive. She's hot though. But she's like a mix between Peter and Mary Beth.
Like, why marry Beth of all people?
I think because she was kind of masculine and they're trying to make Rowan into this like tomboyish character a little bit. Where
Yeah,
like, she's tall and skinny and athletic, and I guess maybe not tall, but that kind of like body type that even if she's smaller, she's like kind of like lean, I guess, is how I
yeah.
interpret it.
I know with Peter, he was like blonde, right? And like
Yeah.
that's like a rarity in the Mayfairs, which is weird that in the show they chose not to go with that because that was like one of the defining things. But
Yeah.
yeah,
There's
I
there's
do
a lot
remember
of
that.
things in that show.
True. That was like one of the things when I was reading this that like she was like one of the few blonde ones like
Yeah.
out
Yeah, which is like
physically at least.
a throwback to Peter, a throwback to like that Peter's daughter that he fucked, right?
Yeah, I was
I
gonna
think
say
she was
Charlotte,
blonde.
right?
I try to look for like clues in here as to what they're trying to say about things, but sometimes I just feel like I don't know, like that meme of Charlie in the mailroom with all the red threads.
Yeah, that's pretty much the Mayfair family.
Yeah, yeah, you're
Fuck.
right. And then this chapter goes on, like, with Rowan's history, describing Graham as like, that bitch is cucked. He is like, he can't handle, he's like both very 80s and very like now, where he can't handle his wife making more money than him or having more money than him. And so he decides that he's going to deal with that by cheating on her, even though he's described as loving her. He just like moved his mistress into an apartment when she got cancer because he was
That
like,
was like some mafia shit, dude.
yeah. And then Rowan freaking murks her.
Well, I mean, fuck her. So fucking Graham.
The thing about like as they go through Rowan's history and like talk about how many people she actually murked, which is like a little bit like Cortland, where you're like, all these people died the same way. I wonder what that was,
Yeah.
I just feel like this bitch has killed a lot of people, and it shows how much privilege and obliviousness she has, that she thinks she only killed two, for one thing. I just have to say, as a poor person, if a lot of people started dropping like flies around me in like the same way, I feel like I would be investigated. I feel like I would have cops fucking up my life, even if I had nothing to do with it. So
Yeah. More than likely.
the other thing is that they talk about her as a healer, but I don't think that's right. I don't think she's a healer. I think she has the ability to see into the situation and know how to fix it sometimes. But if she was a healer, she would have healed her mom. She's not really a healer. She's just very good at diagnosing
No.
things and maybe having the skill. But again, the skill thing, they describe her as a brilliant neurosurgeon. But
Oh
would
my
she be
god.
so
Yeah. Really.
brilliant without her psychic gifts, without her fucking massive privilege and coming from a family where she could go to school and become a neurosurgeon?
Like if you have to keep saying that, it's like, come on, dude.
And I feel like they
Which
have to
she
keep
does.
saying it because she doesn't act smart.
No. Yeah.
They're
She
like,
does not make good
remember,
decisions. Yeah. Remember,
remember
she's
this
like a brilliant
bitch?
neurosurgeon. It was
Yeah,
like fucking Ben Carson when like he was like
right.
saying like the pyramids were used to store grain or whatever, and then it's like, oh yeah, but he's a neurosurgeon. Once again, it's like you could be a brilliant neurosurgeon, like and that does take a lot of skill, but you can also be really fucking dumb like everything else. And like when
Hell
people don't
yes.
make that connection, they're like automatically if you're like in a prestigious field, if you're an expert or something, it's like, well, you must know everything. A lot of
Right?
people prove that wrong. There's a lot of fucking dummies.
I think the
That show was
thing
cool.
is, obviously, you have like finite, brain potential, like
Mm-hmm.
brain matter or whatever. And so if you use it all for like one thing, maybe you're not an expert at everything, and that's okay. That's why
Yeah,
we have experts, because then we can go ask the expert in that field and like try to use that. I would hope you have good like critical thinking, problem solving skills on top of your skill. That's not
she
always the
does.
case, but let's
Yeah,
assume
she
that
does.
if you're an educated professional, you have that. So you should know when it's not your forte and you need to go find a different professional that's good with that. But that's not really the way that people look at things.
No, especially not the people in or they think they're fucking like geniuses about everything.
Yep.
And they just make dumb decision after dumb decision. It's like, oh my god, dude. It's like fucking Michael, he's like this super smart guy who, reads Dick and whoever and goes to foreign films, but then he can't like fucking like just like not be drinking beer all the time and like fucking passing out and like it's like how smart is that bitch?
Well, I mean, alcoholism is a serious disease,
It's
but
true.
I just don't know many alcoholics that like their main jam is beer. And also just
No.
like many alcoholics that would drink beer at the level that Michael drinks beer and still just be like described as like a tall, skinny dreamboat. Like, no, you
No,
ingest that many
you're
calories. First of all, you're gonna have a gut. You're gonna have a keg around your
gonna start beer.
midsection.
Yeah.
Second of all, that man's got to be pissing all the time. Like, hanging out with him has got to be lame because you're drinking that much, like that volume to get that fucked up off of beer. You're drinking a lot of fucking liquid.
Oh,
That
and
man's constantly
belching.
pissing.
Constantly burping too. Like there's no
Yep.
way he's not with all that fucking carbon.
They don't describe him as pissing a lot or burping a lot. And I feel like these are oversights. If he's drinking beer, which I do think it's weird to be an alcoholic just only slamming beer. Like,
Yeah, 100%. That's like the worst way to be an alcoholic. I'm sorry, but it's like because you're getting all that extra like garbage in beer.
even a case of beer, are you really gonna be a like over 6 foot tall man and stay drunk all day on a case of beer?
I don't. Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know.
Because I've seen you drink half a bottle of Tito's and still talk to me like you're just perfectly normal. That's the width and breadth of this passage of the book. So it's not getting a lot. There's a couple big passages of the files. There are a couple little story beats in between. All right. Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you for listening to the Annegirls Podcast. You can find us on the internet at annegirls.ghostinthemagazine.site.